Ever wondered what the story is behind the legendary killers of Dead by Daylight? The special killers only unlockable through highly rare cosmetics. Let's take a look today. Naughty Bear. Naughty Bear, despite appearing maybe slightly out of place in the realm, is actually more deserving of being here than maybe any other killer, with him being the genesis of DbD in a way. Naughty Bear being the titular character of the game Naughty Bear, a game where he goes on a bear killing spree after not being invited to Daddle's birthday party, using cruel methods to dispose of them all. In the realm though, Naughty has become far more sinister, with him entering the real world, seemingly transforming him, potentially even into flesh and blood, with his eyes looking rather realistic, and there being some hints toward this in the flavor text too. He further has a narrator, much like in the games, the entity providing this upon entry to the realm.
Everyone's been laughing at you, Naughty.
It's highly theorized though that this may actually be the entity's voice in reality, with many characters in the DbD universe also experiencing this dark whisper, which fuels hatred for others. So that voice may be our first canonical appearance of the entity actually speaking a language, rather than just the whoa whoa whoa. The Krampus has a rather creepy story behind it, with it being St. Nicholas's opposite in a sense. A creature that comes to punish the children who are naughty, occasionally hitting them with birch sticks, and even sometimes stealing and eating them, taking them away in its basket, which we can actually see in this case. If we peer into his basket, you can see a pair of eyes creepily looking back at you. This Krampus is interesting too, as it appears to almost be a gift from the entity to the killers, with him said to punish every survivor that has dropped pallets and blinded killers. It also makes suggestion that this version of the Krampus actually found and killed Santa, with those pants being his. The Luxie is a being from Crypt TV and is almost like a more sadistic or twisted pyramid head, with him being a mysterious entity himself and targeting people who refuse to let go or give something up, those who give in to grief and remorse. If they cannot move on from this, the Luxie takes a part of them, typically a rather critical part like their head. The Luxie is defined by its wide grin and lack of eyes, but also its claws that stretch out from its hands. In the realm, as he's a doctor skin, he also gets given this oversized wrench, with wires twisting up his arm, making him appear even more sadistic. If you yourself cannot release, then it will come to take a piece. Eddies contain all of the Eddie skins from the Iron Maiden collection. The story behind these is rather simple, to be fair, and it's just that each Eddie is representative or taken from a specific Iron Maiden album. Samurai Eddie appears to be from Senjutsu, Stranger Eddie from Somewhere in Time, Pharaoh Eddie from Power Slave, and Eddie's Tribute seeming to be a combination of just an overall visualization of Eddie and Iron Maiden. Each of these depictions and stories behind them being a twisted mix of the DbD characters with Eddie, and providing a deeper story to each. Samurai Eddie tells the story of Oni seeking a samurai within a field of 1,000 fallen undead ones, standing down to fight him. Stranger Eddie tells a mysterious story about a saloon filled with creatures from another world, finding and piercing his bounty. Pharaoh Eddie is the story of a cruel, undead, and powerful ruler in a land of mysterious ancient pyramids. The tribute finally being many forms of Eddie merged into one terrible, nightmarish form. The Mordeo is a creature from Crypt TV as well, and one that visually alone is already very horrifying. The story behind it though is even more twisted, with it being a demonic protector of the woods, specifically a certain sacred area, where if a person eats another, they kill and transform them into a Mordeo too. In this specific case, it suggests that Huntress may have entered their woods, ate someone in desperation after starving, and then was transformed into a Mordeo, joining them. This process being quite horrifying, with flesh falling from the skin to reveal a deer skull beneath, with her now protecting the same woods and transforming anyone who resorts to what she did as well. So this is Huntress just transformed, which is horrifying. The Baba Yaga is another interesting and highly popular character of folklore, often depicted as a guardian of the woods who can sometimes be good and other times bad. Sometimes she eats kids, other times she aids those who are lost. This is reflected in an interesting way on the cosmetic, with the two faces you can see, the wicked and witch-looking side, then the calm and friendly-looking one, with this extending all the way down the garments which are made of her victims, to the feet and hands which can be seen as both horrifically twisted and distorted, weird, and also fairly normal. This cosmetic also comes with a unique lullaby, which is very cool, said to happen as Huntress transforms into the Baba Yaga, a process that likely occurs due to the survivors of the realm remembering the folklore, and this causing the fog to change Huntress, manifesting her as the Baba Yaga. The only thing she's missing is her house, which walks around on chicken legs. Were-Elk is rather fascinating as there's lots of theories about what it is. Some believe it to be Anna, the Huntress, and her true form. For many years it was theorized that Anna was actually a werewolf. She sings a song about a wolf who will attack children who sleep too close to the bed's edge. She seems supernatural with the way she moves and fights, and in her blighted skin she grows a considerable amount of thick hair, where no other killer does, suggesting this is her true form coming through. So when the Were-Elk came along, it was instead assumed that Anna was actually a Were-Elk. The flavor text tells a story after all about a man who has been wandering through the Red Forest, and tells some villagers about his encounter with a beast in the woods. This could also be not so literal though. This version of Anna as a Were-Elk may be manifested from the stories people told about her. She wasn't actually a were creature, but due to her brutality and proficiency, people told stories about her that way, leading many to believe there was indeed a monster in the forest, with there being a charm as well which hints toward this being true. The final theory is that this isn't even Anna, but instead the elk who killed her mother, transformed into a monstrous being, and potentially even slaying Anna herself, which is why it has the Huntress mask slung across its back. The other mask could be the one that belonged to her mother. It is sort of a bear mask after all, so, you know, a mother bear. Armored Titan is a titan from the Attack on Titan universe. Interestingly, the Attack on Titan universe appears to have been attacked and consumed by the entity already, with the flavor text noting the skin to be from a lost realm, a discarded or drained one from within the wider entity's realm. As Oni encounters this, he seems to absorb the memories that are there, transforming him into the Armored Titan, a titan notable for its thick armor-like skin that covers most of its body. It's obvious this is just Oni as well, as it's tiny in comparison to the real Armored Titan, and also notably is missing the spot on the back of its neck where the human pilot usually resides. Warhammer Titan is the other titan that appears in the realm, another creature said to be from this lost realm. Possibly the entity sent both Oni and Spirit together to the Attack on Titan world that it consumed, causing them both to transform upon arrival. Spirit takes on the form of the Warhammer Titan, a titan able to form dangerous weapons or tools out of hard crystal. In this case, Spirit's form is more notable within the Warhammer Titan transformation. Overall, it's rather disturbing though that beings this powerful, or a world this powerful, is still unable of resisting the entity and its approach. Tomie is a character from Junji Ito and one that follows Tomie, a beautiful woman who causes those around her to instantly and obsessively fall in love with her, and women to become jealous, eventually leading them to slaughter her in some brutal fashion as they fall into madness. Yet she always lives on by forming a new body. In the realm we can see this happening in real time, with the flavor text saying that she started to split, a new face growing next to hers when the fog engulfed her. We can see her body is damaged and a new evil looking face forming on the side of her own, which is freaky. Miss Fuchi is also from Junji Ito and visually incredibly horrifying, with this horribly contorted mouth which extends wide and open. In this case though, it appears that Miss Fuchi has been combined with Artist's ink arms still remaining. The story however being about some filmmakers in the woods who are halted by a dark fog and seemingly attacked by Miss Fuchi, with her biting and consuming them, able to unhinge her jaw and make it incredibly wide, which is why she has such a large grin, laughing maniacally. So another people eater. Half Spirit's Torments is our final Junji Ito entry and appears on The Dredge, combining it with the story of the mysterious tunnel, a story about a tunnel which causes people to be killed by being sucked into its walls and floor, their souls seemingly getting trapped within, the characters of the story being visible within the fog of The Dredge, their forms twisted and distorted after being dragged into the tunnel's walls. The flavor text recalling a character in the story who tried to escape, but saw others who had died and was soon dragged in himself. The story of the tunnel feels fairly similar to the stories we hear about the overlaps of the Dead by Daylight universe. Therefore maybe that's why this is appearing on Dredge, who I've theorized before to be a living overlap of sorts. HUNK is interesting as he's not technically a killer or a bad guy necessarily in the world of Resident Evil. He is however colloquially referred to as the Grim Reaper, and by fans as Human Unit Never Killed, or HUNK. with him frequently being the only survivor of various dangerous missions. He is silent and his face is never directly shown, leaving him quite mysterious in origin, with him being the most proficient mercenary in the RE universe, and one of few survivors of Raccoon City, which is where he seems to have been taken from, as he was tasked to retrieve samples of the T and G virus. It's interesting therefore that he's in the fog and fulfilling a killer role. It potentially suggests there could be some deception going on by the entity, manipulating his vision to see the survivors as monsters maybe, or maybe simply the entity just hired HUNK on a contract to serve it in the realm. He's just a mercenary after all. Maybe he's literally just getting paid, which is horrifying in itself. Murderous Grizzly is an interesting character, with it being a bear with a cat on its head, initially quite innocent seemingly. This originating from Night of the Living Cat, a manga series where cats have gained powers, one of them being the ability to mind control other creatures, in this case a bear. This is really quite creepy though, and the cat almost acts like a parasite on the bear's head. If you watch closely, you'll see that the cat moves, and then the bear follows shortly after. The cat is truly in control, where the bear is almost an empty vessel to be used better for combat. What's even more horrifying about this is that the bear is stated to not even know it's being mind controlled. The Minotaur originates from Greek myth about a half-man, half-bull that lived on the island of Crete, with 7 Athenian men and women being required to be sent to the Minotaur every 7 years to be eaten. What's disturbing about the Minotaur, however, aside being half man and half bull, is that he's actually a rather sympathetic figure despite his monstrosity. This creature could have been raised with respect, however it was instead locked away into the cold and dark labyrinth and fed people, therefore becoming a monster. It's not too dissimilar to the story of a character like Billy, who became a monster but only because he was treated like one. Eventually the hero Theseus comes along and slays the Minotaur. The lore mentions that the Minotaur actually manifests in the realm as a result of many knowing its myth, many of the survivors remembering this story, causing it to physically materialize in the trials. This could also be why it appears so monstrous, because that's what people were taught, that's how they remember it. William Birkin, as we see him, appears the way he does due to injecting himself with the G virus after attempting to steal and sell it. He is attacked by Umbrella soldiers, his former employers, and is nearly killed. However, he manages to inject himself with the G virus, a virus developed by himself and Wesker. This virus causes monstrous effects and mutations to occur, and Birkin uses it as he knows it will strengthen him and allow him to survive his wounds. It does, however, also appear to split his sense of self, spawning an eye on his shoulder. This is seemingly more than just an eye though, and is almost a second consciousness. Birkin is constantly fighting within himself, and the destruction he causes, as the virus progressively takes his body over. We can even hear this in the trials with how he screams out for help. Sometimes he'll be angry and cruel, and other times he'll be regretful and in pain. Ferryman of the Underworld, also often known as Charon, was the ferryman that sailed people across the River Styx in the Underworld, requiring a payment of a coin to do so. He's also often referred to or depicted as sort of an unopinionated party though, a character who doesn't do what he does out of love for it, but out of duty. Therefore his presence in the realm is interesting. His depiction is also particularly horrifying in the realm, with him appearing to actually have souls flowing through his body, and even faces of the dead screaming out from beneath his skin, and hands clawing, with this said to be his flesh getting torn by lost souls. It also mentions that he would drown those who couldn't pay the boat fee. It seems to be a rather horrifying twist on the original myth, maybe a Charon from a particularly dark universe. Chatterer is the Cenobite co-worker of Pinhead and appears to almost be his second in command. But why does Chatterer appear the way he does? Chatterer was originally called Jim, with darkness entering his life when he's only a boy after he kills his abusive father and frames his mother for the crime. He eventually comes across the box and is taken to the labyrinth and altered by Leviathan, the ruler there. It's unclear exactly what happens to him, but he appears to have undergone serious transformation, the skin around his mouth being removed, his face scarred, and his eyes sunken beneath the skin. The creepiest part is his constant chattering, which is how he now communicates, due to the damage caused by Leviathan stopping him from speaking in a regular way. The Leshen is a creature from the Witcher series, a forest spirit that kills those who enter the forest, and is able to change its appearance to best hunt its prey. It's seemingly on Artist specifically due to the Leshen ability to summon crows. The flavor text tells the story of this Leshen being in a field of felled trees, angry at whoever did this, when a fog emerges to come for it, merging both the artist's ink hands with its true form, which has these large antlers and a branch-like body. Very deadly creature, that are typically far larger and have these large claws that in the realm are replaced by the artist's ink. Another monstrous being on Artist is the Frumious Jabberwock, a character that originates from Lewis Carroll's Jabberwocky poem, which depicts a dangerous creature which can only be killed by a vorpal blade. In the realm, it appears that the mad designer Trix has read this poem, potentially versions of it from across the Omniverse, as she is the one cited as its creator in the flavor text. She made the Jabberwock in the realm. In each entry, she describes decisions made for its monstrous appearance, like its claws or jaw, with it being nonsensically written, like the original poem, but also like Trix often does. It's curious too, as this Jabberwock has freshly broken eggshell across it, suggesting it's just been created or hatched from an egg, and may even be hatched from the artist's ink egg, with it having the artist's hands. Xenomorph Queen is the queen of the xenomorphs, and this is shown through its larger body, headpiece and arms that sprout from its chest. The Xeno Queen is the hive leader, but also mother of the other xenomorphs, required for their survival. This one likely being from the film Aliens, and spawned from Ripley's memory. Interestingly, the DbD version makes a few adjustments too, which aren't a part of the original design. Overall though, they are largely quite horrifying and imposing. Tiffany Valentine is originally the girlfriend and later wife of Chucky. Much like Chucky though, she wasn't originally a doll, but became one when Chucky killed her and resurrected her as one, after she had just resurrected him. She's also killed multiple times after this in the sequels within her doll form, with her eventually transforming her consciousness into the actor Jennifer Tilly. It's all really confusing. They also have a doll baby together. Seed of Chucky gets super weird. What's disturbing about her presence in the realm though is that she doesn't appear to be herself necessarily, but instead manifested through Chucky, as her ghost is not present when she's picked up, instead being Charles Lee Ray, Chucky's human form or ghost, suggesting it's not actually Tiffany, but a memory of her, with the flavor text mentioning that their bond was so strong she defied the grip of death. Rize Kamishiro was the ghoul that Kaneki actually got his powers from, and she dies almost immediately in the show. She originally gets close to Kaneki as she hopes to eat him, as ghouls do, with Rize's name being the Binge Eater, a pretty horrifying title that spoke to her prolific consumption of people. As she hunts down Kaneki, biting him, and moments away from killing him, she gets crushed by some metal that falls from above, killing her and badly injuring Kaneki. In order to save Kaneki's life, Rize's organs are taken and given to Kaneki, which is what makes him a half-ghoul. Rize was sneaky with how she'd tempt people in, with her manipulating Kaneki by convincing him that she was interested in him, mimicking his interest to get close, only to try and devour him. Due to her organs going into Kaneki's body, he seems to have some kind of deeper bond with her too, with him connecting back to her when he snaps after his torture from Jason. So Rize being a skin for Kaneki is likely because they have a deeper bond. Kaneki not only remembers her, but she's also quite literally a part of him, and therefore that's probably why she manifests in the realm. Yellow Rabbit is William Afton, but the movie version of him, which is why he appears like Matthew Lillard. This version of Afton follows a fairly close story to the FNAF games, being the founder of Freddy's Pizza, being responsible for the construction of some of the animatronics, and also the murder of the kids that happened at the pizzeria, which led to 4 of the animatronics becoming possessed by the children's ghosts, these being Freddy, Chica, Bonnie, and Foxy. Afton puts on the suit after he is confronted by these 4 ghosts within the animatronics. In order to escape or survive them, he puts on an old Spring Bonnie suit, a yellow version of Bonnie, but one that can be worn by a person, with the one downside being the spring locks within that could trigger and puncture into the wearer's flesh, which is exactly what happens to Afton. Although in this case the suit is triggered by a cupcake animatronic, which bites into Afton's torso and triggers the spring locks. In this universe though, this Afton isn't killed, like he's meant to, and doesn't become Springtrap, because he instead is transported to the realm, and seemingly the entity is holding back the spring locks in some way, as this Yellow Rabbit Afton doesn't seem affected. The entity denied the kids their revenge. Glitchtrap is a mysterious manifestation of evil, with it appearing after old circuit boards were used when creating a game, leading to Glitchtrap's appearance, with it being a digital version of Spring Bonnie, the same suit worn by Afton, and Glitchtrap is often theorized to be Afton or hold a part of him in some way. In the realm it's even creepier though, with the entity said to have made this virtual being into a real one with physical flesh. Despite this, we can still see the digital aspects, such as the glitching purple textures that often appear over the blade, but also around its body. A digital being made flesh though is truly horrifying. Henry Creel is essentially just Vecna, but before his transformation. Henry had a very tough life from a young age all the way up to his transformation into Vecna, becoming the first subject in the Hawkins lab before eventually becoming an orderly there when 11 came along. His powers inhibited by a chip. This chip was torn from him by 11, which caused him to finally unleash and commit the Hawkins lab massacre, the aftermath of which we can see in the Hawkins map. As a result, 11 banishes him to the abyss by using her powers, causing his body to painfully collapse and fall. We see him tumble through, struck by red lightning, his body destroyed, which leads to his formation of his final Vecna form. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts as always down below. Thanks, and goodbye.